Can I declare the meeting open to the public? Can I advise members that the committee meeting will be recorded and broadcast throughout Parliament buildings and online? Can I advise members and those in the public gallery that they are welcome to use mobile devices as long as they are in airplane mode and all devices are muted? Attendees can also connect to the Assembly Wi-Fi and password details are available on the gallery rules. It is not permitted to take photographs or record any part of the meeting. Can I advise members that it is proposed the oral evidence session with officials from the Department of Justice on October monitoring, future years exercise and 5-year plans will be recorded by Hansard? And can I seek their agreement? Can I seek your agreement to this? Members agreed?
Yep.
Can I remind members then that they are obliged to declare any financial or relevant interests that might reasonably be thought by others to influence their approach to a matter under consideration? Are there anyone members wanting to declare an interest? Danny?
Yeah, just if a immediate family member works in a probation board.
Okay, any other members wish to declare at this stage? You can declare as the meeting goes on if you need to. Okay, before we move on, members, can I just say that having seen the press footage of the protest outside Naomi Long and Michael Long's house, can I just state on record as chairperson of the Justice Committee that there's absolutely no place for a protest like that outside an individual's home. No matter what work you do, no matter how public facing it is, everyone has a right to privacy in their own home. And no one on no subject matter should be protesting outside someone's home, their family home. And so I condemn the actions then of that. There are legitimate ways to protest. We live in a free society. You have the right to protest, but you should not do it outside somebody's private home. Any other members want to? Patsy?
Thanks very much, Chair, and I would like to be associated with your comments. From what I saw on social media, and that's disgraceful behaviour by an element of thugs outside anybody's house, be they minister, be they MLA or not, or a member of the public. It's really disgraceful behaviour and roundly to be condemned, and the message must go out to these people. If you want to protest, grand, but bringing it to someone's home is just way out of line.
Okay, thank you. Deirdre Hargate, Deputy Chairperson.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. I suppose, just to reiterate the Chair and the rest of the committee's condemnation of the disgusting actions last night and just solidarity with Naomi and Michael. And obviously this has been the second attack this week on 2 ministers within the executive. One with a blast device as well earlier in the week, obviously of Sinn Féin offices, and now at another minister's home. And Naomi has seen such attacks before, and I suppose words matter. And that it is right that we all do come out and unequivocally condemn what's happened. And any elected member should have the right to live, safely within their home and without these types of actions. So again, just to endorse the committee's condemnation of this incident.
Okay, thank you. Brian and then Connie.
Well, Chair, thank you for raising this, and I just endorse your comments, and I welcome that there's the unanimous view of the committee that this was entirely wrong, inappropriate, act of intimidation of the Justice Minister, and as the Committee for Justice, it's right that we speak publicly condemning that action. Whatever their thinking was, it was entirely wrong. It was shameful, and sadly it's followed a pattern of people taking matters into their own hands inappropriately and acting on the wrong side of the law. That has happened over this summer, and we hope that that pattern had come to an end. So clearly not for some individuals. I note the police are investigating what occurred, but it is absolutely right that we as a committee are united in condemning what occurred. Thank you.
Okay, Connie?
Yeah, just to say, I appreciate that you raised this, Chair. Obviously Naomi's my party leader, and I was just absolutely horrified to see what unfolded at her and Michael's house last night. It's just completely sinister. beyond crosses a line of what's acceptable in protests. And I appreciate the comments from colleagues who have condemned it from across parties. And obviously I also condemn the device that was found outside Minister Liz Kimmon's office earlier this week. It's a really worrying place that we've got into in politics, and I think it's really appreciated that colleagues across parties are standing up for this. But I know Naomi and I know Michael, and I know this won't deter them, and it won't deter them from their work. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just,
Doug.
Look, I need to add the same voice on behalf of the Ulster Unionist Party. It was shocking, it's shameful that people think they can intimidate in the manner they did. What they're trying to do is instill fear in elected representatives. We've seen it with the device outside Sinn Féin office. We're now seeing it outside Naomi and Michael's home. There's no place for it, there's no need for it. It's utterly disgraceful. This is about small-minded people who think they can push their will onto other people in this manner. And I really do stand in solidarity with Naomi, Michael, and those others who have been where people have tried to intimidate them. Absolutely disgraceful behaviour. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thank you, committee. Without further ado, then we'll move on. Agenda item number 3 is draft minutes. Can I inform members that the draft minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, 2nd of October 2025 are pages 21 to 31 of the meeting pack? Can I ask members if they are content that the minutes are a true reflection of the proceedings of that meeting? If so, if you are happy and content, I'll sign. Agreed?
Agreed.
Agenda item number 4, matters rising. There are no matters arising unless any member wants to raise anything from the minutes. No. Okay. Agenda item number 5 then is October monitoring, the future year's exercise and 5-year plans, Department of Justice oral evidence. Can I refer members to pages 34 to 190 of the meeting pack? Can I inform members that Department of Justice officials are attending today's meeting to give oral evidence on a number of matters related to the finances of the department. These include the 2024-25 annual report and accounts and whole of government accounts, the 24-25 final outturn, the 25-26 monitoring rounds, the progress on transformation bids, the quality screening and the budgetary future, including the 26-27 to 29-30 information gathering exercise and the development of the departmental 5-year plan. Department of Justice officials providing evidence today are Richard Logan, Finance Director, Andrea Quail, Head of Financial Planning, Strategy and Support, and Louise Blair, Head of Financial Planning and Support. You're very welcome to the Justice Committee. I'm sure you're no stranger to the Justice Committee, although I am with regards to me taking up the role. But you're very welcome here today to present to us. And without further ado, if you have an opening statement, please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, folks, and thank you for the opportunity to update the committee on finance-related matters for the department. I'm joined today by Andrea Quail, Head of Financial Strategy, and Louise Blair, Head of Financial Planning. We've already shared with the committee a detailed written briefing on the areas we'll cover today, so therefore intend providing just a brief overview at this stage to highlight some of the key points. In relation to the 24-25 statutory accounts, I'm pleased to report that the Department's annual report and accounts were successfully led in the Assembly by the summer recess deadline of the 4th of July with an unqualified audit opinion. This was a significant achievement in terms of the Department fulfilling its statutory reporting duties and ensuring compliance with governance and accountability responsibilities for the 15 organisations within the departmental boundary. I can also confirm the Department successfully met the 3rd of October deadline for submitting whole of government accounts to the Department of Finance. The final outturn position for 24-25 was submitted to DOF on the 19th of September, and in terms of our main 1.34 billion budget for non-ring fence Resourcedale, the department achieved an underspend of 2.8 million. So this means that we spent 99.8% of the budget available, and this reflects a strong and effective financial management exercise by the department in terms of maximising its budget. Turning now to the 25-26 financial year and in-year monitoring rounds. June monitoring was agreed by the Executive on the 30th of June, which provided the Department with additional funding of 15.4 million. However, despite the welcomed additional allocations, it still left the Department with significant pressures to manage, namely 32 million stabilisation costs and 22 million exceptional items. The Executive also agreed in June monitoring that the Department will be given first call of up to 7 million of funding in future monitoring rounds towards PSNI workforce recovery costs in 25-26. Whilst the next monitoring round has not yet been formally commissioned by the Department of Finance, the Department is already undertaking an updated assessment of its in-year position. Whilst there are stabilisation pressures across a number of areas, PSNI is still the largest, with approximately 22 million of pressures. The Committee will also be aware that the Department faces exceptional pressures of 227 million due to legal claims relating to the data breach, holiday pay and McLeod. The costs associated with these exceptional pressures are best estimates at this stage, as there will be a range of potential outcomes depending on the eventual settlement costs of these legal claims. The timing of when these claims will be settled is also still uncertain. Further engagement has continued at both official and ministerial level between DOJ and DOF to identify and secure the necessary future funding that will enable the claims to be settled. However, this funding has not yet been secured. Once the next monitoring round has been commissioned by DOF, I will ensure the Committee is provided with full details of the Department's submission at the same time as it is shared with the Department of Finance. But given the level of significant level of pressures that still remain across the bloc, it is likely there will be very limited, if any, funding available to the Executive for reallocation during 25-26. The Department's budget will therefore require continued careful management and difficult decisions to reduce the risk of an overspend. All DOJ business areas will be required to continue to implement cost reductions and efficiencies in order to reduce the level of remaining pressures and live within their budget allocations. The Committee will already be aware as well that the Department was successful in securing transformation funding of 22.6 million for 2 projects in the first tranche of bids for speeding up justice and transforming the criminal justice system, and also modernising electronic monitoring. The Department received 5.1 million in its 25-26 budget allocation for these projects, and work on both is progressing. The second tranche for transformation bids was launched on the 23rd of June, and the Department subsequently submitted 3 bids, together with a further bid from the Cross-Executive Programme for tackling paramilitary activity and organised crime. The Executive Office notified the Department that 2 of our bids, Ending Violence Against Women and Girls and the PSNI Relativity Platform, were selected for further consideration by the Board. And as part of their consideration, the Board have also requested further information from our 2 other bids for the Enhanced Combination Orders and the Trauma-Informed Approach Delivery Team. We remain actively engaged with the Board and its Secretariat to assist in its considerations, and we await the outcome of the decision making. We will, of course, as we did with Tranche 1, inform the Committee of the outcome when it's provided to the Department. Should the bids not be successful, further funding will be required to ensure that critical transformation work identified can still move forward. Given the level of the Department's pressures, additional funding to facilitate the delivery of transformation is a key priority to ensure that the Department can continue to deliver all its demand-led services in the most efficient and effective way possible. In terms of future year budgets, the Committee previously received the Department's full submission to DOF on the 4th of September for the budget 26-27 to 29-30 information gathering exercise. In its return, the Department reported non-ring-fenced resource stabilisation pressures of 141 million in 26-27, 242 million in 27-28 and 341 million in 28-29. With regards to planning assumptions for funding allocations, DOF advised departments to use the budget 25-26 position for all 3 years for resource budgets. The indicative June 25 monitoring allocations agreed by the Executive at opening budgets were not included in the planning budgets as per DOF guidance. So for DOJ purposes, therefore, our planning was based on a budget of 1.35 billion for the next 3 years. The Department also took into account confirmed Treasury allocations for transformation, Protocol and Windsor Framework and PSNI additional security funding in order to establish the level of pressures in future years. At an operational level, the budgetary pressures are due to a combination of factors, including a continually increasing prison population, additional demand on police and court services, increasing legal aid requirements, pay and pension increases, and inflationary costs. The pressures also reflect the currently unfunded costs relating to the PSNI Workforce Recovery Plan. Given the constrained financial position and the demand-led nature of justice expenditure, there is no scope for the Department to absorb pressures of this magnitude within its existing budget. The Department also submitted bids to DOF to provide details of the transformation Tranche 2 bids that were submitted to the Board in August 2025. The capital delta requirements for the Department, including those capital elements of bids submitted to the Transformation Board, are estimated at $230 million in 26-27, $264 million in 27-28, $320 million in 28-29, and $260 million in 29-30. And these bids are considerably higher than the Department's capital budget of $100 million for 25-26. So as I've just outlined, the Department has identified significant financial pressures for both resource and capital requirements. However, until such time as the actual budget settlement is known, it's not possible to determine the full extent of the funding gap and the action that may need to be taken by the Department. In the meantime, the Department will continue to engage with Department of Finance colleagues throughout the budget setting process. The Executive's Budget Sustainability Plan, published on the 3rd of October 2024, included a key commitment that the Executive agrees to a future work plan to help secure and maintain sustainable finances. One of the key ways in which this will be taken forward will be through the development of comprehensive 5-year financial sustainability plans for each department. The 5-year plan is therefore key in setting out the strategic direction for the department. It will bring together all the key elements that will impact on resource and capital budgets over the next 5 years. This is the first iteration of the departmental plan, but we expect that it will be further developed and updated going forward on an annual basis. As no decisions have been taken yet by the Executive in terms of setting final budgets for DOJ or other departments, it's intended that the plan will remain draft until multi-year budgets are set. The Department's 5-year plan is currently being finalised, and full details will be provided to the Committee at the same time as it's submitted to DOF. So maybe just in closing then, I trust that I provided you with a helpful but candid overview of where we are now in terms of our financial position. We continue to operate in an extremely uncertain financial environment, and the Department's position remains very challenging in terms of managing the budget. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to provide the briefing today. We very much value the role and views of the Committee, and we're happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard, for being concise there. I really appreciate that. I'll ask one question and I will put it out to the members. Richard, why in the written text that you provided for us and in your presentation today, why have you not told us about the AMI, the annually managed expenditure, the 446.6 million underspend, which equates to 63.6% of that?
So at the June Committee, I gave an overview of that staying in provisional outturn. Provisional outturns broadly stayed the same. So as a department, we have 7.3 billion of pension liabilities and 1.1 million of general provisions, which all count towards AMI. So the 400 million is approximately 5% of our total AMI that we're managing. We would have built in headroom in the estimates for any variations at the end. We found that in the previous year, certainly with GAD, Government Actuaries Department, who provide valuations for the pension schemes, that a 1 or 2% change in their assumptions, maybe on future life expectancy or something like that, could have an impact of maybe £100-200 million in terms of the figures. So rather than risk an excess vote on AMI, we deliberately built in headroom. We have other areas in terms of the compensation services where we have a change in the statutory discount rate, and we'd factored in certain assumptions just to err on the side of caution. So I acknowledge it's a significant amount. However, it's not our direct day-to-day budget. We do manage it carefully, but it's with the sort of £8 billion that we're managing. If we're doing on a plus or minus 5% sort of tolerance level on that, that's the basis where we sort of try and manage that. But it's significantly higher than the DEL elements.
So what are you're managing is about 8 million, say 10 million conservative.
8 billion.
Sorry, 8 billion?
8 billion.
Oh, sorry, I thought he says million.
It's a £7 billion police pension schemes, and we
right,
have
okay.
we have 1.1 billion of provisions, so that includes legal aid provisions, it includes the litigation claims, legal claims, and includes injury and duty benefits, injury and duty awards for police and prison service.
So when you say that then the 8 billion, then that's why you're looking at a 702.2 million budget for annually managed expenditure to give you that headroom within
for
that.
Movements in year.
And when you say movements, that doesn't include McLeod, or does it?
It includes certain elements of McLeod, so if there's any elements that affect police pensions, that would be built into the police pension AMI. And if there's any legal claims in terms of McLeod, any movement in year would be counted as AMI. So the settlement of any of our provisions, the use of provisions, is a non-ring fence resource del hit, whereas the movement, the increase or decrease each year in AMI is the increase in provision or decrease.
Right, okay. And legacy civil cases, is that included in that, Amy, or is that resource?
The initial setting up of the provision, so whenever, say, police are aware of a case, they'll provide for that. That would hit Amy in the first instance, and then as and when the cases are settled, that becomes a resource del hit.
Resource. Okay, Doug, you want on this point?
Just on this point here, Richard, thank you. I mean, it's well you understand what you're talking about, because an awful lot of this flies over the top of my head. But look, just looking at this then, if I can. So at the start of the budget, you said how much you're going to put for legal aid, and say it's 80 million. But legal aid is demand led, so it's now gone up to 120 million. Does that mean that 40 million could come out of Amy? Could you allocate that from Amy to be able to cover that demand-led shortfall? Because that's what Amy's for, demand.
There's two elements. In terms of when a claim comes in for legal aid, or it's the award is issued, in the first instance it's set up as a provision, but it specifically can't count as Amy. Treasury rules wouldn't allow that to count as Amy, because it's up to and it's a similar situation for Administrative Justice and legal aid in England and Wales. Yeah. That essentially is under control of the department in terms of the criteria, etc., and departments are expected to manage that. It's different to benefit welfare payments, which are pure AMI, that are completely outside control, whereas for legal aid we're expected to manage that. So the provision, when it's set up, is AMI. When we pay the cash out the door, it's resource del. And the start of the year then for the so we set up an AMI budget, and then we've set up the budget for legal aid this year was £120 million. Yeah. So we have that. There's no doubt there's uncertainty in terms of the timing and the value of claims coming in and out, and that's one of the particular areas we have to focus on in forecasting, that we need the claims to come in. At the moment we believe that that 120 million will be sufficient for this year. However, we can't control the number or the value of claims actually coming in, but we have historical trends, we do forecasting. So an area we really focus on to manage that, to make sure that any risk of either overspending or maybe more importantly not fully utilising our budget, that we balance that off.
Yeah, and I kind of get that, and that's why I'm saying, because legal aid is demand led. I mean, you literally don't know what the receipts are going to be come the end of the financial year, and that's why I was wondering, because it's demand led, are you able to use the? I mean, you've clearly answered no, you can't, and I'm happy enough with the answer. I was just investigating.
It would be great if we could. That's one particular area. I mean, similar but on a smaller scale. The compensation services, the criminal injuries, where again smaller budget but same principle of we're waiting to see. So whenever we get to the end of the financial year and we're looking to maximise our budget, that's risk for us as a department that claims come in and have to be paid right up to the 31st of March. So it's that's where we talk about sort of the effective financial management. That's one of the risks we have to manage.
So when did you relinquish the 446.6 million? What part of the year?
We didn't. That's just the outturn. So that was reported.
Right. Okay.
At the end of the year, and say we deliberately take a cautious approach.
Yes.
On that, so we don't have an excess vote, and we'll discuss that with DOF so that they're content. But it's different, clearly different than the resource del, where we're absolutely capped to the budget that the executive gives to us.
Okay, Patsy?
Yep, thanks very much for that. There's a couple of questions here that I have. There's the issue of 228.2 million for compensation for the data breaches, and then there's the exceptional pressures, 100 million for PSNI settlement of legal civil cases. Could you give me an indication just as to where that the issue around the data breach is, where that is legally, and how you've come to that figure of 228.2 million?
So 228 million covers 3 sets of legal claims. So what part of it is the PSNI data breach, an element is holiday pay, another element is McLeod settlements. So there's 3 elements to the 228 million.
Right.
The figures are based then on discussions and advice with legal profession, discussions with or understanding of what the claimants are actually asking for, and potential settlements. So that's where those figures are at. They'll all have had business cases, and it's been well documented in terms of we've been able to approve business cases on value for money where we think that's the best those are the best settlement terms, but we're still outstanding on the affordability position.
So what you're saying is just that 228 million, the bit about the settlement and data breaches, is a notional figure?
It's a best estimate based on the current information that we have at the time. It will depend on whether the cases are settled ahead of a court hearing, or whether and that's the basis we're including, and our factors into our estimate. If it proceeds to court, potentially then higher settlement costs and also additional legal fees. So there's a balance there in terms of financial management.
So it could be more.
It potentially could, yeah.
Is the department, well, we don't see the cases against the PSNI for the data breaches, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
And at what point do you liaise with the PSNI regarding settlement figures?
We're in constant contact with colleagues in PSNI. Normal protocol would be that, whether this instance or other areas, whoever is the cause of the data breach, in the first instance, those organisations are expected to fund it. Clearly, it's not affordable within PSNI's current budget. In terms of what the department can do then, PSNI currently accounts for about 2/3 of our budget, with the remaining sort of set aside for prisons, courts, legal aid. So there's no additional scope within the department then to actually fund those additional costs.
Yes.
That's where then, from the outset, we've been engaged with the Department of Finance to try and secure the additional funding for these exceptional costs. And that if it was a settlement of £1 million for a normal claim, quite rightly, departments would be expected to fund that, or the organisation to fund it themselves. But the quantum of these claims are such that we just cannot cover that from our existing budget.
Kind of sort of is trying to drill down here. So say, for example, if the court case is, as a lot of these court cases do, they run on a bit, and if it comes to one point where the settlement figure is being contested by the applicants for either been contested or a settlement figure is arrived at, do you, the department, who are going to wind up, well, maybe as an intermediary if it's coming from finance, paying this, do you have any input at all as to instruct the police, look, settle this?
We would have discussions with police or any other organisations in terms of trying to manage the budget, because county officers have the clear responsibility not to overspend. So we're trying to balance any legal requirements to settle claims with living or meeting our obligations to not overspend. So we would have that continual conversation with PSNI and any other areas that have those claims.
Well, so you don't have the power to instruct them. All you have is the power to say, look, we're coughing up or divvying up the money here.
It's the claims against PSNI in the first instance.
Yes.
I'd like to think we get an agreed position in its an arm's length body within the DOJ,
Yes, okay.
and we're working in partnership with them.
Okay, then the £100 million for PSNI settlement of legacy civil cases, is that a notional figure as well, is it?
I would say that's now a pressure as a newly emerging one. So we haven't reported on that before to the committee. That was reported really for the first time formally to the department as part of the future year's information gathering exercise. And PSNI have sort of identified 100 million sort of each year over the period of those years. and I think we're probably at the early stages then of really understanding the breakdown of those costs. And just this week I'm due to meet with PSNI Legal Services and sponsor team from the department in November to sort of get drill down into the figures and actually see the basis for it, and sort of the prospects of how is it calculated, how realistic is it going to be paid, is it evenly spread over every year, can it be phased, just those sorts of options.
And I know it's early yet because we haven't seen the actual end legislation that may be amended, but the proposed changes for legacy legislation, I take it you're keeping an eye on that. If it starts to be padded out to such a degree as there may be more draws on compensation required as a result of legal actions, I take it that's a factor in this, is it?
And from the outset, any engagement so far with the NIO officials on this, the point has been made of we don't believe that Justice or the block was ever funded for these legacy costs. These are unique costs for Northern Ireland. They didn't form part of the devolution budget settlement, so these costs are emerging. Chief Constable is saying he has no specific budget for it, and that the same would apply for the Department of Justice in terms of those costs would always have sat outside our budget that we actually have.
And Chair, just to round that off, are you getting any sort of positive vibes from the NIO that in those instances where this requirement of money may come about through legal actions or settlements on the back of the proposed new Legacy Act, that in fact they will pony up?
Yet, no positive feedback on that. However, that doesn't mean we stop at this point. That's something to continue to challenge and see what can be negotiated in the future for those costs.
Right, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Brian?
Thank you, Chair. Just to go back to the AMI funding and the 63% underspend, I mean, I am surprised we weren't given an explanation for that in the notes, because it obviously it's the standout statistic in the report. So, and you're saying it's, just run this past me again, it's mainly pension payments, or is it, it's an allocation, is it a ceiling figure for an unpredictable cost?
So a provision is an uncertainty where we don't know the timing when it's going to be paid or the actual amount that's going to be paid. Typically it relates to legal claims, but pension liabilities is a key area as well, as are injury and duty awards. We only account for the increase or decrease each year, and it scores against AMI. So there's no cash, cash terms, there's no impact on the department, the block budget, or any of our organisations. It's a non-cash transaction. Say, look, at some point in time we will have a liability, and it won't actually hit the real budget. So in terms of press coverage and what actually affects the delivery of services across all organisations, it's not AMI. So apologies for not including it. I sort of covered it in the questions were asked at the June meeting, but I'm more than happy to sort of to outline again.
So it's not something that can be reallocated within the department, then it's not part of the DEL?
No, there is no loss to the department or block at all. Nobody loses out as a result of that.
Okay. And the other question I want to ask, paragraphs 18 about the transformation fund bids, 4.8 million for speeding up justice, 0.3 for GPS enabled tagging.
Yep.
Will the department be able to produce figures for ongoing savings through that investment of transformation fund? Because the idea is that this produces a recurring saving.
Yeah, there's a formal reporting mechanism through the transformation board. So that each of those projects and all the projects that were successful have to report, and they'll be reporting against the benefits realised and things like that. So yeah, absolutely, we would expect that to come through in the efficiencies and all the benefits.
And they'll aim to identify a figure, will they? Not just that it's more efficient, but they'll aim to identify an actual savings.
Yeah. And it could be sort of cash or non-cash in terms of things are more efficient. I think part of the challenge for the departments all are costs are inflation, and pay awards are increasing the costs automatically. So if we can even sort of manage to cover some of those. We might not be reducing our cost for our starting point, but if we can reduce the increase that's inevitable, then that's an effective saving as well. So it's a combination of those. But certainly that's a key. I think the Transformation Board have been very key, or very certain in terms of saying they want to get those regular updates. So that's part of the whole process and structure, certainly for the Transformation Board.
Okay, thank you.
What is a relativity platform?
It's an IT solution to reduce the amount of paperwork. So it'll be scanning, and it'll allow, if there's redaction of information or transmission of information on a more secure basis. So it's primarily an IT solution to make things more efficient and effective, and reduce the amount of manual hours that are needed, or to make analysis. Open up opportunities to actually make more of information. So that's what it is. I think the relatively may refer to actual, like a bespoke name of a piece of software, something like that.
Okay. And is this internal for the police organisation, or will this be a criminal justice element with regards to evidence?
I think in the first instance it's developed by PSNI, but they've said that there's the potential for expanding this out maybe wider even within the public sector. So until they do the full proof of concept and actually develop it, but certainly that's one of the options that is part of the selling points for this, that it's in the first instance PSNI, but it has the potential to maybe to roll out further.
Not to prejudice your bid in the Transformation Board, but why did these two projects just come out in the second tranche? Why were they not put in a bid for in the first initial tranche? And why weren't we doing this? Why weren't we doing the relativity platform and the joint bid ending violence against women and girls before?
So in terms of the two bids, ending violence against women and girls was a bid submitted last year in the first tranche by the department. So it didn't progress through. The Transformation Board decided not to progress that bid. This is just a new bid that has come in now this year for the police relativity one. I would imagine the police will have said they've needed investment to actually do that, and that's part of the expected benefit from the Transformation Board, that departments, not just yourselves, have really good ideas to transform, but they need upfront funding to develop it, or to have additional staff to free up probably the experts in business areas, to let them develop the new ones, or to engage outside firms or technology. So I think that's been the key limiting factor in the past, that these things need additional money to do it, rather than just sitting down and saying that we're going to change how we do it and move people around. That can be done at negligible cost. This requires upfront investment to achieve the most impact.
Okay, Deirdre, Deputy Chair.
Yeah, no, thanks very much just for the update. I suppose I wanted to ask around the equality screening. So on the one hand, in terms of initial assessment, it showed that there would be a potential equality and or good relations impact, but a more disproportionate impact on those from marginalised or disadvantaged groups. And obviously we find huge numbers in that section of the population that are in the justice system. So I'm wondering why the department felt that there wasn't the need for a full EQIA. And if you're moving to the 3-year budget cycle, I mean, we'll have to wait until the Chancellor's announcement in November, and it may be into next year, I suppose, before we see. Are you going to conduct a full EQIA on that 3-year budget?
We're currently looking at the 3-year budget, so what we've done is we've gone out to the business areas and asked each individual business area to conduct screening in the first instance. We're currently in the process of bringing that information back into the department, and then we'll summarise that information. We have a return due with the Department of Finance on the 24th of October, so we hope to have all of that information collated and assessed at that stage, and then we will have a better indication of what is the next steps required.
So on the 3-year budget, there's been no decision to...
So that's the 3-year budget, sorry, I'm referring to.
Sorry, yep, so no decision at the moment to
no decision at the
conduct
moment.
one? Okay. On the transformation bid stuff, I mean, I suppose just as a side point, the one that was around the GPS and electronic tagging and the new contractor, obviously, Buddy, that's within the normal department's contract, and then there's the transformation part of that. So I would be keen to get an update, because obviously there were issues with the previous contract holder, and now with the new introduction of GPS enabled tagging, my understanding was when we had got the presentations previously that it would take some time for that part of it to be implemented. So I know it's not a finance question per se, but I would be keen to get an update at some point on where that contract is, how it's working, how the main contract within the department sits then with the transformation bid monies, just to look at the outcome of it. The other one then around the ending violence against women and girls, I suppose I'd be keen, it's not primarily a finance question, but I would be keen to see in terms of the structure of engagement that the department has taken with health, because obviously the Department of Health are going to be key players in this, and also the PSNI, and how that relationship's going to be managed then if the bid is successful. And then I know it talked about that the other bids that weren't successful around the trauma-informed practice and the probation. Have you any update then from the Transformation Board around areas that need work on, or if there's even the likelihood, because I know the budget obviously is limited in this round, is there even a likelihood that they will go back in again?
I think there's still, it hasn't been decided, is what I would say, in terms of, we haven't been told that those 2 additional bids have been formally ruled out. They have been asking for more information, and we have been, through the business areas themselves, have been providing that. So at the moment we've 2 definitely through. There were presentations given just on Monday the 6th there, from the 2 that went through. So we'll wait the outcome of that. And as far as we're being told, the 2 other ones, the EGOs and the trauma-informed ones, they're still in the mix, so they haven't been formally ruled out. And maybe just to touch on the point you mentioned as well, look, we're more than happy. We can provide sort of summary updates in terms of financial bits, but the experts are in the business areas, so certainly they'll be able to advise the committee much better than I would be able to on the work that they've done and will be doing.
The other one just around monitoring rounds, obviously there was a call in terms of PSNI resource pressures that Justice would have the first call, but has there been any update on October monitoring or any other bids that you were looking to make beyond the PSNI costs?
So October monitoring wasn't formally commissioned. I think my expectation or view would be we're probably looking more like a December monitoring round. It'd be more likely to be that, which DOF might commission end of October, maybe into November time. So we need to sort of see the parameters of what the ask is. So whatever decisions are taken in the interim by the executive, that'll be reflected in the formal commissioning note. We get formal monthly updates from business areas, and our finance business partners are in ongoing daily contact with all the areas, so we have a good handle of our pressures. I think police is still primarily the main pressure that we're facing. There will be other potential areas at June monitoring, and we'd bid in for legal aid, and maybe said to you earlier. I think at the moment we can manage that. However, we carry a risk for the remaining part. So certainly we will be putting bids in, and they will include the PSNI.
I suppose just a point then, if that is going to be pushed out potentially to December, obviously there's the 32 million in over commitments, and the more you push that to the end of the financial year, so I suppose how you're managing some of those pressures then whilst waiting on a delayed
Those are coming down. So business areas know that we've been very clear not to expect any future allocations coming through. So and some areas just sort of drop off naturally, where we might have a heads up that a cost might be coming through, but it maybe doesn't materialise in the current year. So the business areas themselves are actively managing those. So the 32 million is coming down, but we still will have pressures that there will be can't be funded from within the existing DOJ budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Doug Beatty?
Yeah, so, and it's just a follow on from that, Richard. So there's no October monitoring round. So that 7 million that was promised for the Chief Constable Recovery Plan, we're now hoping you're going to get in December. Is that where we are?
Certainly, there's been October monitoring has not been formally commissioned, and now that we're on the 9th of October, I can't see that happening. So we're looking at the next, and that's why it's in the written paper deliberately referred to as the next monitoring round, because there's an uncertainty for all of us in terms of when it will be. My guess it will be December.
But we're still only looking at a promise of the 7 million, and what if that promise doesn't materialise? Because we've obviously been bounced to December for a reason, and maybe that monitoring round didn't have the funds for that. Are we in danger that the money isn't available?
There's always a risk until we get the formal notification and confirmation through that money doesn't come through. However, we will work on the basis and hopefully the assumption that that does come through.
But you're working on the assumption it was coming through in October? Now you're working on the assumption it's going to come through in December?
And that's it. That sort of ties in with the uncertainty that as a department and trying to live within budget, it's trying to balance. There are certain things we can control, and then we've a much bigger list, I would think, of things that we can't control.
That's fair enough. I have one more question,
Yep,
but it's a different area.
Go ahead.
Just on the legal aid budget, so I'm going back to that again, if you don't mind, because it taxes me a little bit. When does it get audited?
It's audited same time as the other departments, agencies and departments. So that'll generally the audit starts in January each year and finishes at the end of June. So and legal service, I know a number of years ago they weren't meeting summer recess, but they now the last 7-8 years, not longer, meet summer recess, so they're fully up to date.
We've got the audit from last year, which gave us a fraud and error of about £2.8 million. What are we looking at for this year? Fraud and error. It's going to get qualified accounts again.
My expectation would be it would be still qualified on the basis that, given if it's not sort of percentage, then audit office on a regularity basis will qualify on that. But recognise the improvements that being made to actually reduce it. So I think a number of years ago the criticism, the qualification was legal aid couldn't put a value on it.
Remember?
And that was the starting point. We've progressed on significantly from there, where Department for Communities, their Standards Assurance Unit, are in doing the sample test, independent sample testing. So work is progressing on that.
And you're comfortable that fraud and error is still reducing? As best you can be comfortable.
Yes, the reason I'm hesitating is it depends on the sample. So if 1,000 claims are picked, it depends. One could be a value of £100, one could be a value of £5,000. It just depends what the sample is. But I think certainly the trend is that it's being addressed, it's reducing in terms of official error, and training is going in place. And so any proactive measures are being put in place to address it.
And Richard, just to stick on that, are we doing recovery then for that fraud and error? I mean, are we doing 100% recovery of fraud and error? Are we doing 60% recovery? Where are we on that?
My understanding is that where the specific cases are identified of overpayment, then that's being recovered. Similarly, if underpayments are identified,
right.
So that's my understanding. So I'm not so close to it, but that would be my understanding.
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
It's just in relation to, I suppose, the future, the budgetary future. So just to maybe explain how a multi-year budget might be able to put the department on a more sustainable footing, just if he's had a multi-year budget, what difference would it make? And then just obviously the tangible benefits, and you mentioned about a cost realisation plan, that's cash, non-cash, etc. With not having a 5-year budget at this stage and you have plans around it, what work is done with yourselves over a 5-year period to scope out level of demand for services, level of efficiencies? It's just that wider piece that needs to be done as well when you're forecasting ahead, because I'm keen to see, I suppose, efficiencies and likewise if you're speeding up justice, what's forecast that potentially it's saving money, and maybe not, and maybe there isn't a cash benefit from it. So it's just the longer term planning, how the department works through that.
So last 10 years have only been single year budgets, so this is sort of new territory for everybody. The expected benefit would be it gives us that assurance of what our budgets are going to be, so we have a certainty and we can plan ahead. But that might just be confirming that we have a deficit for the next number of years and we have a confirmed shortfall. So once we know that, we'll be able to plan better. That'll allow us to see and make decisions on not just something that affects the next year, 26, 27, but years down the line. But we need to know what those values are going to actually be for the budgets. In terms of how we plan for it, so like prisons, whenever they're doing their costings for future, they'll make assumptions about the number of prison places and things like that to see what the demand would be. how that would affect the cost of running the prison, the accommodation needed and the cost like that. Legal aid will look to see any changes from the reform programme that's going on and how that will impact. Similarly then with courts. So the areas will look to see in their own particular area what the demand would be, and then they've costed those. We've done the future years information exercise. The 5-year plans is essentially the same information. It's just rebadged and represented in a different way. In terms of efficiencies, I think the likes of some of the speeding up justice and some of the work, say, courts are doing, it's maybe towards the tail end of the 3-4 year period before some of those efficiencies actually come in, because it takes a number of years just to actually achieve those. But we'll be looking at even trying to raise additional income. So courts have plans or considering in terms of increases to fees and the recovery in that. So that will be factored in as well to it. And in terms of planning, our two main assumptions that we're making would be on the level of pay awards and the level of inflation. So the pay awards broadly are in the range of, say, maybe 3 to 5%, and that's not to prejudice any final decision. That's sort of a planning. Generally, for NICS, DOF have given us parameters to work with, and anybody who's under specific pay award, it's their best knowledge at this time of what the pay will be. So we know, for example, that at the moment our pay bill as a department across all the organisations, NDPBs as well, is approximately £1 billion. So for every 1% pay award given, it will cost the department £10 million. If it's a 5% pay award, it's £50 million. When we get, or based on those projections and estimates, when we get to 29-30, our pay bill would be in the region of £1.3 billion. So at that stage, 1% would be £13 million. And the other parameter is rate of inflation, so it's sitting 3-4%. That's several million or tens of millions as well. So those are our two. We have a whole lot of assumptions that each business area will provide assumptions and they'll forecast individually. But at a strategic level, the pay award assumption is the key one, which has the biggest impact on our budget.
I suppose if you look after the pennies, the pounds look after themselves. So I suppose just if the chair would allow me, I'm very keen to see, particularly in relation to early intervention work that is done, because we want to see a reduction in the number of people going through the courts. We want to see the reduction in the number of people going through our prisons, because if we continue on a trend, and I get that obviously inflation and pay is fixed, so it's a bit easier to forecast in 5 years, but is there any work in relation to the early intervention work that it's done, that there's a cost benefit realisation plan that it's built in maybe over 5 years?
I think that probably links in key to the speeding up justice, the money for the transformation bid, where there's 5 pillars to it. It's early engagement, out of court disposals, committal reform, remit of the magistrates court, and digital strategy as well. So those key elements are about trying to get the more serious crimes into court earlier and to speed up the work then down the line for courts and everything. So that's probably the primary area on the speeding up justice work for the transformation bid work. That's we touched on earlier, where they'll have their business case to do that, and it'll set out over the years what their expected benefits will be. So that's probably the key.
An area I would love to actually see from a financial point of view, where we can see the trends of everything increasing, but what's been done internally within the department to reduce costs, and you can actually see it over a 5-year period in particular. I know it's difficult over there 1 year, but over a 5 year, at the end of 5 years, we're actually saving because we've been able to reduce the needs across the justice system. So it's just an area of work that I would really like to see presented within plans going forward if we do get into a multi-year budget. Yeah.
Okay, let me bring you back to this year. The overcommitment that the department has. What work is being done in the absence of an October monitoring round to actually bring that overcommitment down?
So that's the work we're doing day to day with our business areas in terms of trying to get the cost reductions and efficiencies to bridge that gap that we have reduced to 32 million down, or it's reducing, and we'll see now what we can do, both in terms of if there's any easements from any business areas that come out, if we can reallocate that and offset costs and pressures elsewhere. We've talked about the 7 million, that's an element of it, but it's that final bit of sort of £5-10 million or so, which is sort of under 1% of our budget's 1.4 billion. So 1%, not too many figures here, 1% is 14 million. So we're very, very close, but it's just that final final step of trying to ensure that we don't overspend.
How does a first call on a monitoring room work? Is that a new thing? Is that something that you guys as financial directors have been pushing for? How is it that we've now ring-fenced 7 million as a promise for justice?
I imagine it's on the basis of there wasn't the money at the June monitoring round, but it's saying actually whenever we come next time, this would be the first call on it. So it wasn't something we would have much preferred to have got it in June monitoring.
Yeah, of course.
The fact we didn't, this was probably the next best thing, that at least when we know the resources are going to be limited in year, other departments are going to be putting bids in, and we'll be sending it. We have that from the last time that we should be getting, or it's the executives that time agreed that we would get first call on it. So
You think
certainly not something we have pushed for.
Yeah. Do you think first call practice will increase with a multi-year budget and monitoring rounds in year?
I think that the complexity will increase in terms of maybe PFG allocations or executive priorities or issues that come up unexpectedly, that there's no simple way now of managing the budget. There's so many complexities within our department and across all the departments that it'll be a case of trying to manage that as best as possible.
Okay, Brian, you want in? Yep.
Just a quick point, just on the pilot on domestic abuse notices and orders as part of the transformation funding, will that require legislation or can that be advanced under existing legislation?
My understanding is they're looking at pilots to see how it's done. They've looked elsewhere in other areas to see how it works, to undertake a pilot here, and then when they see the workings of that will determine what needs to be done in terms of if there is any additional legislative requirements. I don't honestly know, but I think that's part of the outworkings of the pilot.
I don't know. Sounds positive anyway. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, there's no other members wishing to ask or indicate to ask questions, so just thank you, Richard, Andrea and Louise, for attending today and for answering our questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be seeing you in the future, I have no doubt. Thank you. Okay, members, then, pushing on, agenda item number 6 is the Justice Bill written papers. 6.1, further queries regarding the proposed amendments. Can I refer members to page 192 to 199 of the meeting pack, which contains a response from the Department of Justice providing further information in relation to several of the planned departmental amendments to the Justice Bill. The requests for information arose from various briefings from Assembly Legal Services before the summer recess. Can I ask members if they are content to note the paper, or if any other information or clarification is required at this stage?
I was chatting there. Which paper?
Sorry, it's pages 192 to 199. It was the answers to the Assembly Legal Services briefing just before recess. There was a series of questions around biometrics.
Oh yes, was
importance
this
of
the comments
retaining
from
DNA.
the Justice Department? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Chair. It was the bit on page. What page are we on? 194.
Yeah.
So it was the retention around those offences which a fine is given, where it said that the 2-year retention provision for penalty notices was introduced as part of a previous Justice Bill, but it was never commenced.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah.
So, I'm just concerned, even in terms of this bill that we're looking at, around commencement periods and things not being taken forward. And I would like to understand why it wasn't commenced. And does that mean then that, I suppose on the one hand, I would be concerned of fingerprints being retained for 2 years for offences where a penalty notice is given? Because obviously you're trying to keep people out of the system and trying to do that. But I'd be keen just to understand the not commencing and what the reasons are for it.
The valid point, I had highlighted that. So it was Section 60 of the Justice Act, NI 2011, was included in Schedule 2 of the Criminal Justice Act, Northern Ireland 2013, which was approved by the Assembly but never commenced. Yeah. So we'll ask that question, why was it not commenced? There might be a valid reason. So are members content then to note the paper? Okay. Item 6.2, response regarding raises paper on the Justice Bill, organised crime amendments. Now I refer members to pages 200 to 209 of the meeting pack, which contains a response from the Department in relation to the scrutiny points raised in the Assembly research paper on the Department's proposed organised crime amendment to the Justice Bill. Can I ask members if they are content to note the paper or if any further information or clarification is required? Okay, members. 6.3 then, request for further information table. Refer members to pages 210 to 245 of the meeting pack, which contains the documents prepared by the committee team to track committee requests and responses received in respect of the Justice Bill and proposed amendments. Can I seek members' agreement to note the list of requests and responses? This has been very helpful to me, to be fair, coming in cold. Members agreed then? 6.4, Professor McLean, response to the deep FAC consultation. Can I refer members to pages 246 to 252 of the meeting pack, which contains a copy of Professor Claire McLean of Durham University's response to the consultation on creating, sharing and requesting sexually explicit deep fakes. Can I inform members that Professor McLean had contributed to the committee's work in 2022 in relation to law reforms on upskirting and cyber flashing that were included in the Justice Bill at that time, the Sexual Offences and Trafficking Victims Bill. Professor McLean advises that she has been involved in work to introduce a similar offence for sexually explicit deepfakes in England, and members will see from her response to the current consultation on deepfakes that she is of the view that current proposals are too limited to be effective, and she recommends a broader offence that be consent-based. And I ask members if they are content to schedule an oral evidence session with the Professor when the outcome of the Department's consultation and further information on the Department's proposed amendment to the Justice Bill are available. Members agree?
Great,
okay. Can I advise members then that the next three items on the agenda relate to separate but related statutory rules proposed by the Department of Justice? A single memo which covers all three of the SL1s is at page 254 to 256 of the meeting pack. However, in order for the committee to consider whether or not it is content with each of the individual proposed statutory rules, each SL1 will be considered as a separate item. They are dealing with different bits of law. So agenda item number 7, SL1, the Criminal Justice Northern Ireland Order 2008, retention and disposal of seized motor vehicles, amendment regulations Northern Ireland 2025. Can I refer members to pages 254 to 267 of the meeting pack? Can I inform members that the committee has received SL1 fees uplift, the Criminal Justice Northern Ireland Order 2008, retention and disposal of seized motor vehicles, amendment regulations Northern Ireland 2025, which is a proposal for a statutory rule made under powers conferred by Article 66 of the Criminal Justice Northern Ireland Order 2008, the 2008 Order, as amended. The rule will be subject to negative resolution procedure. Can I inform members that the proposed regulations will amend the Criminal Justice Northern Ireland Order 2008 to increase the fees to be paid by vehicle owners in respect of the removal and storage of vehicles which have been seized because the vehicle has been driven carelessly, inconsiderately or illegally off-road and is causing or is likely to cause alarm, distress or annoyance to members of the public. The Department proposes that the fees are increased by 28%, increase to reflect inflation and increased operational costs from 2008 and to maintain parity with England and Wales. A consultation was carried out between April and June 2024. 5 of the 9 who responded to the proposal to increase fees by 28% agreed with the proposal, while the other 4 called for a higher increase. The Department advises that pending necessary approvals, the rule will come into effect in early November 2025 or as soon as possible thereafter. So therefore, can I ask members if they are content with the proposal for the statutory rule or if any other further information or clarification is required? Members content with the proposal? Okay, agenda item number 8 then is SL1, the enforcement of fines and other penalties amendment regulations Northern Ireland 2025. Refer members to pages 269 to 280 of the meeting pack. Can I inform members that the committee has received the SL1 fees uplift, the enforcement of fines and other penalties amendment regulations Northern Ireland 2025, which is a proposal for a statutory rule made under powers conferred by section 23(1), 7 and 8 of the Justice Act Northern Ireland 2016. The rule will be subject to negative resolution procedure before the Assembly. Can I inform members that this proposed rule will amend the enforcement of finance and other penalty regulations, Northern Ireland 2018, to increase the levels of charges set by the Department in relation to removal, storage and disposal of vehicles seized under a seizure order in specified circumstances by 28% to reflect inflation and increased operational costs from 2008, and to maintain parity with England and Wales. The proposals form part of the consultation referred to in the previous agenda item. The Department advises that pending necessary approvals, the rule will come into effect in early November 25 or as soon as possible thereafter. So therefore, members, can I ask if you are content with this proposal for this stat rule, or if there is any further information clarification required? Content?
Content.
Agenda item 9 then is the SL1, the Road Traffic Northern Ireland Order 1981, retention and disposal of seized motor vehicles, amendment regulations Northern Ireland 2025. Refer members to page 282 to 293 of the meeting pack for the relevant papers on this. Inform members that the committee has received the SL1 fees uplift, the Road Traffic Northern Ireland Order 1981, retention and disposal of seized motor vehicles, amendment regulations Northern Ireland 2025, which is a proposal to make a stat rule under powers conferred by Article 180C of the Road Traffic Northern Ireland Order 1981, the 1981 order as amended. The rule will be subject to the negative resolution procedure before the Assembly. Can I inform members that the proposed rule will amend the Road Traffic Northern Ireland Order 1981, the retention and disposal of seized motor vehicles regulations Northern Ireland 2008, to increase the levels of fees set by the Department in relation to the removal and retention of seized vehicles in specified circumstances by 28% in order to reflect inflation and increased operational costs from 2008 and maintain parity with England and Wales. Again, the proposals form part of the Department's consultation referred to previously, and pending necessary approvals, the rule will come into effect in early November 2025 or as soon as possible thereafter. So again, can I ask members if they're content with the proposal for a statute rule, or if any further information or clarification is required? Content?
Content.
I think members, I think the fact that they've waited to 2008, you can see this sort of thing happening every year in line with inflation, but hopefully they'll not leave it so long the next time. Agenda item number 10 then is the Crime and Policing Bill, second legislative consent memorandum, correspondence. Can I refer members to pages 295 to 304 of the meeting pack, which contains follow-up information from the Department of Justice that officials agreed to provide members with during the oral evidence session with the Department on the Crime and Policing Bill, second legislative consent memorandum on the 11th September 2025. Can I ask members if they are content to note the paper from the Department, or if any further information or clarification is required at this stage? Yes, Deirdre?
Sure, thanks very much. It's just to highlight, I suppose, it's the issue that I know we have raised previously on the code of practice for remotely stored electronic data, and just that the response is that it hasn't commenced yet. And it's just to highlight, with the Department, that I would like to see that code of practice up front. I know it's one of the issues that the Human Rights Commission have raised generally. If you're talking about commencement around codes of practice, that it's good practice to see that in advance of actually agreeing to something. So it's just to make that point, to reflect back. But again, thanks for the broader update from the Department.
Okay, and then can I then refer members to page 3 and 4 of the table pack, which contains an update from the Department on further developments related to the second LCM. Can I inform members that the Department has advised that in relation to clauses 157 to 165 and Schedule 9 of the bill on barred and advisory lists, the Home Office has now advised that it will not be possible to draft clauses to create a barred and advisory list for the PSNI due to the volume of other amendments required to be drafted for the Lords Committee stage of the bill. Members may recall that the Department had previously advised that provision was expected to be included for the creation of a barred and advisory list for the PSNI, but due to drafting capacity, it could not be extended to other relevant bodies in Northern Ireland, such as the Policing Board, the Police Ombudsman for Northern Ireland. The committee was advised that the Police Harbour Police and Belfast International Airport Police had also indicated they would wish to be included in the provision. During the evidence session on the 11th September, officials acknowledged that barred and advisory lists for the PSNI only may leave a gap, lists for the PSNI only may leave a gap though the expectation was that the vast majority being added to lists would be from the PSNI. Officials advised, however, that creation of the lists for other bodies would require primary legislation, and there would be no capacity for additional legislation in the current mandate. I would worry about this because there is, if they're saying that there would be a gap when they only considered the PSNI lists, and they're now not going to do the PSNI lists, then I do think there is a gap here, and I think it's something that the committee should raise as a query. They say that they don't have, they'll have to do it through primary legislation. I'm not sure they'd have to do it through primary legislation for the PSNI piece, but they would have to do it for the other piece. Yeah. And that there's no capacity for additional legislation in the current mandate. Considering the Minister has made several amendments to the Justice Bill, I don't know if this is something that we should ask if there would be scope to include this to the Justice Bill or any of the other two pieces of legislation coming through. It might be a no, but I think it's. I think we should worry about the gap being created. Were members content to at least ask that question? Yeah. See what they come back with. Okay. Can I inform members then, additionally, the Justice Minister is now seeking to extend 2 further measures of the bill to Northern Ireland. These relate to the creation of a statutory defence for persons testing artificial intelligence for child sexual abuse material, extreme pornography and non-consensual intimate image abuse, and the criminalisation, the possession, the distribution or publication of pornography depicting strangulation and suffocation. Can I inform members that the Department advises that its officials are currently working with counterparts in the Home Office and Ministry of Justice on the detail of these proposals, and the Department will provide the committee with an update as soon as possible. Can I ask members then if they are content to note the Department's updates or if any further information or clarification is required? Agreed. Agenda item number 11 then is Restorative Justice and work of Interim Protocol lead update. Department of Justice written paper. Refer members to pages 306 of the meeting pack. Can I inform members that, as requested by the committee, the Department of Justice has provided an update on arrangements for the expansion of adult restorative justice and the new standards and accreditation process. The update provides information in relation to several areas, including the new practice standards and accreditation framework, the accreditation application process, the role of SIGINI within that, the expansion of adult restorative justice on a phased geographical basis, the accredited organisations and practitioners and the restorative hub, the training and the referral mechanisms and the funding model. Can I just remind members that the committee will be hearing a joint oral evidence on the Department's proposed restorative justice amendments with Community Restorative Justice Ireland and Northern Ireland Alternatives at next week's meeting. So given that information, are members content then to note the Department's paper, or is there any information clarification sought even in advance of that presentation? Go on ahead, Derek.
We'd like to just maybe note it that if we need to come back to it, because I suppose one of my issues that I would like to even draw out in the presentation next week, I know they're in on the Justice Bill amendments, but it is there a drift towards this being part of the justice system when restorative justice is really that community-based response? That's why it works. And I would be keen to tease out with Alternatives and CRJ their views on some of that, and you know, just where it sits. So I'm just keen to hear more, because I don't work directly in that area of work. It's just a concern I kind of have, so I would like to know more about it. And if they were more formally part of the justice, what impact that would have on people actually going forward to a voluntary process.
I don't know that there's so much won't be more involved in the actual justice, the criminal justice system. It's probably just the SIGINI's role changes in inspecting them. Instead of doing that initial inspection at the start, it's going to be a more rolling periodic inspection, as I read it anyway. But again, we could tease that out next week.
Yeah, we can, if we could come back.
Okay.
Thanks.
Just a note on that, I think it's important to reiterate that it's so successful in the fact that because it's voluntary, so it's just teasing that out as well. You know, if it's a court order rather than a voluntary, it nearly defeats the purpose of what community restorative justice is about. Yeah. So that's just a note.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just ask, do you want to share any of the papers with community restorative justice and alternatives before next week. I'm conscious though that they are members of the restorative justice working group, so they probably are aware of all of this anyway. But
we could share it with them. Is that okay? Yeah.
There's no harm.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Chair, there's no representatives of those groups coming next week then? No?
No, they are coming up.
They
They're
are
coming
coming
up to give a presentation, both groups. Yeah. So we can tease it all out, you know, with them. It's just, it's nearly coincidence that they're coming up, but they're coming up anyway, so we'll tie it all together.
No, that's good.
Okay, agenda item number 12 then is correspondence. I inform members that there is a correspondence memo and 9 items of correspondence at page 370 to 442 of the meeting pack. An additional piece of correspondence relating to item 12.7 in the meeting pack can be found at page 6 of the table pack. Can I advise members that I will draw their attention to 3 of the items, and then and they will then have the opportunity to comment on any other items of correspondence in which they have a particular interest. Can I refer you then to 12.2 and 12.3, the individual responses from the Department of Justice and the Bar of Northern Ireland regarding access to the Bar of Northern Ireland for students? Can I remind members that at its meeting on the 11th September 25, the committee considered correspondence from an individual in relation to access to the Bar of Northern Ireland for students. The committee agreed with the individual's permission to forward their correspondence to DOJ and the Bar of Northern Ireland for a response. Can I inform members that individual responses from DOJ and the Bar can be found at items 12.2, 12.3 respectively? Can I seek members' agreement to forward both responses to the individual and to seek the individual's consent to forward their original correspondence to the Department of the Economy for the Economy and the Department of Finance for response as suggested by the Department of Justice's response? Members agreed?
Right.
Yeah.
I just think, because this is an issue, I think, in terms of making sure the justice system is representative and is reflective, and it even feeds into the earlier discussion on the budget, in terms of the disproportionate impact on disadvantaged groups, which for me is a class lens on these things. And it is something that we have raised before in the committee. I know when we met the Lady Chief Justice as well, around working class communities particularly, you know, having the opportunity. And unless you know somebody in the legal profession or you've money behind you, you're never really getting on the bar unless you're lucky to have a scholarship or funding from elsewhere. So I do think it is an issue in terms of access, and I would be keen at some point, I mean, it's without heaping on extra work, because I'm conscious we're busy, that when we do have the bar, and again, if we can pick this up as an issue, and as well, again, what's the cross-departmental work, because I think even the department's answer is a bit flat, you know, so what are they proactively doing if they know that this is an area that's of concern in terms of representation within the wider justice system, particularly working class people? Are they doing cross-departmental work between justice, economy and finance, looking at this issue and how they're engaging even universities in terms of their corporate social responsibilities, and particularly Queen's? You know, there's Queen's communities in place that's working in many working class areas, but are they joining the dots on some of this work? And just to ensure that the system is reflective of society as much as it can be.
Yep, okay.
So
I agree with that. Members content then with that? Happy to move on. 12.10 then, invitation from the Northern Ireland Policing Board to an event on the consultation of the revised PSNI Code of Ethics, Wednesday 29th of October. Can I refer members to page 441 of the meeting pack, which contains an invitation from the Northern Ireland Policing Board to an event in James House on Wednesday 29th of October 25 to gather views in relation to the consultation on the revised PSNI Code of Ethics. Can I advise members that they should they wish to attend, they should RSVP directly via the email address on the invitation. Members content? Are members content to note the other items of correspondence, or does any other member want to raise? Deirdre?
Sorry, no, it was just the issue of 12.5, unlawfully at large prisoners, and I suppose it's just reflecting on the media focus, particularly yesterday, around someone who was convicted of a sexual offence and crime, and it's the issue around photos. Now I know it's a PSNI issue, and there's obviously the policing board there, And I know the Chief Constable had previously said that he wanted to look at photos in the case where somebody absconds and where they've already been convicted. So I suppose I just want to highlight it again to say that it is an issue. I suppose what was startling to me yesterday when you heard the women's sector, it was actually the victim had to nearly be forced to come out and call on the police to release the image when the person had absconded, and it nearly fell on the victim. So I think it's just to highlight that point, and it's I suppose when we are engaging with the police and with others, maybe we can pick this issue up again, because I think certainly in circumstances where there's a conviction, where they abscond or they don't return, and particularly in serious and sexual offences, then I think, you know, there would be broad public support that the publication of their photo, you know, to spread awareness. And I think it was concerning in the most recent case that individual that was convicted, you know, was online again, trying to court other women. So I just wanted to highlight it in the context of that correspondence, because obviously the committee have raised this issue before.
Interesting thing about this is that when we've got this letter about unlawfully at large prisoners, that's basically only talking about people who have absconded from prison, not from who have absconded from court, if you like. And if you were to go onto the website, which the department asks you to do, you'll come up with 3 names, just 3 names. And the name that was on the press this week isn't one of those. So I think there's a wider issue here. I just can't for the life of me understand why, when somebody has went missing and they have been convicted, that why they wouldn't use the public to try and find and locate that person, and even just to alert the public to the risks and the safety issue on it. Patsy?
Thanks, Chair, and I would support Deirdre and yourself on this. Just out and about and speaking to people, especially women, they were very fearful that someone who is convicted of a very serious offence, in this case a sexual offence, was out and about and nobody knew what they looked like. So I don't know in what way, I don't know what the mechanisms are for liaison through the department or with the department and the PSNI around matters like this. I know we all have respective members in the policing board, but honestly they need to up their game on this type of stuff. Genuine fear, genuine palpable fear among especially females.
Okay, Patsy, thank you. Doug?
Yeah, Chair, I think you're absolutely right, because there is far more who are unlawfully at large who haven't gone to prison, but they've been found guilty, and they just haven't turned up for that guilty plea. The one that Deirdre mentioned is very obvious. I know of another one who was found guilty of murder, who absconded and isn't even in the country anymore. He's gone back home to Romania, I believe. And I think there's a duty on the Department for Justice that list that I'm looking at as well, which you're looking at with 3 names on it, to be a little bit more honest with that and put the other ones down. This needs to be more than just who's absconded from jail. This is who's absconded from justice is what I think should be on there.
Sure. Ciara and then Connie?
Well, it's moving on to other correspondence, so
sorry.
you're happy enough, or is it still
no,
on the
Connie,
same
are
issue?
you in
It's
this
the
issue?
same issue, yeah.
Go on.
Just I watched the interview with the woman last night that was on the media, and it was horrendous. It was absolutely heartbreaking, and you know, I don't think she should have had to come forward and put herself out there and bear that on the media for action to have been taken. And I think if we are following this up, I mean, I know there is a policing board there. Is there scope for us to write to the PSNI and say the committee's discussed this and expressed our concerns?
I'll seek advice from the clerk in
Just,
this regard.
Absolutely, the committee can write if it wishes to. Absolutely can. But just a reminder that the committee has agreed to bring the PSNI back in towards the end of the evidence gathering on the Justice Bill. And I understand photographs are a different issue in the Justice Bill, but it's still an opportunity if the PSNI are here to maybe put those questions to them, and I can advise them in advance that this will be discussed.
Is that you, Ciara?
Yeah, that's fine.
But Kane, I mean, I think even writing to the department as well around what is the current procedure for those individuals. Is the data collated and how it's collated, so we can understand. And then I know there is a separate issue, obviously the Chief Constable, because they didn't normally release photos, and then he took an initiative last year, but in this case it didn't happen. So it's maybe trying to understand why. So even if in the first part of we're writing to get that information or what the process or protocol is, and then, you know, how that translates in terms of the statistics and stuff, because that was something even actually, it was the girl Elaine Corey from the women's sector raised yesterday on one of the radio shows around that lack of data around some of this as well. And again, it is where it's fallen to the victim, which nobody wants to see.
I think it's all. I think the PSNI are all over the place on this. They say there's sensitivities with releasing footage or images of a person convicted, but yet they will put out photographs of people in a riot situation who haven't been proven to be involved in a riot. And I've had experience in this even on my constituency basis, where they've had to offer apologies for people who were present but weren't doing anything unlawful, but yet their faces were pushed all through media and social media and public a number of years ago. So they seem to have changed tact in and out over the last number of years. And then, of course, when you look at the Justice Bill, they seem to treat photos different with regards to biometrics. So on one hand, they're being very sensitive with images, and on the other hand, they're not treating them sensitively enough, in my view. So I do think there needs to be real clarification around this, and not least for people's safety.
Just on that, I think one of the key questions is what quality assurance is being done in relation to this. And I think it might open a can of worms in relation to a range of areas where there's quality assurance needs to take place on a regular basis to ensure what you should be doing continues to happen regardless who's in posts, regarding position changes and stuff. There's a lack of quality assurance on it.
But if I can, Chair, if you don't mind, this is a police issue, but when somebody's unlawfully at large, it becomes a police issue. But it's still a wider justice issue. The Justice Department should be putting up far more information so people understand what the issue is, particularly when there's information known. Now people will know I've been hammering the issue about your man James Meehan, who's on that list that you're looking at. People know where he is. They know what address he's at. That should be there, because if the family are scared, but he's being monitored living somewhere, then the family can be told this. And if you look at what they actually have written down in regards to James Meehan, and I guess it's the same with others, it gives you absolutely basic information. And if that person has absconded out of the country to a foreign country, for example, it's worthwhile that being on the list as well. So I see this more, not just for the police. Of course, the police's job is to track these people down and get them. But I guess I see this as a wider justice information issue as well.
No, I would agree, most definitely. Are members content then? And I think we could write to the Department of Justice in that vein that Doug's just outlined. Happy enough? And the PSNI. Yep. I thought we'd covered that one off already. Right, okay, members content to move on then? I better take that off my screen, just in case. Agenda item number 13 then is...
I've just one under
sorry,
correspondence.
Kieran, come on ahead.
Just 12.4, obviously, in relation to legal aid fees, and we've had, it is ongoing, and I'm conscious that the fees will be backdated on the date on which they were agreed, which was back for December 24, but it's still concerning. Obviously, there is no timeline, so I would just be keen to know what ongoing discussions are happening with the legal profession and the department as to the ongoing maybe delays or impact that this is having in relation to the current delays.
Okay. You're happy enough with that? Yeah. Okay, members content to move on. Agenda item number 13 is Forward Work Programme. Item 13.1, Committee Draft Forward Work Programme. Advise members that the draft Committee Forward Work Programme is at page 443 to 447 of the meeting pack. Am I right? Have I lifted the right one? Oh, hold on. Bear with me, members. Just make sure I haven't missed them. No, I'm okay. I'm fine. I just need to discard this. Can I seek members' agreement then to the Forward Work Programme? Members content?
Yep, agreed.
Okay, and then... No, left it the wrong one again. I'm getting mixed up, getting muddled. Item number 14 then is Chairperson's Business. 14.1, Joseph Rowntree Foundation invite to round table on the 17th of October. Can I refer members to page 449 to 450 of the meeting pack for relevant papers? Can I inform members that the Joseph Rowntree Foundation has written to me to invite me in my capacity as chair of the Justice Committee to a roundtable discussion on a poverty-free future for Northern Ireland as part of the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. The event will take place at the MAC on the 7th of October. Can I ask members to note the invitation, and can I advise you that I am unable to attend the event? Members agreed? 14.2 then, Minister of Justice Pace Codes. Can I inform members that a letter from the Minister of Justice on the Pace Codes was circulated to members earlier today? The committee previously agreed to the Minister's request for a meeting with the Chair and Deputy Chair to discuss a range of issues, including the Pace Codes, and that meeting has been arranged for the 20th of October. The Minister has asked that details of any outstanding queries on the Pace Codes are provided in advance of that meeting to allow for discussion on the way forward. So can I invite members to indicate if there are any queries that they wish to raise now, or if they wish to forward them to the committee team after the meeting, so you have time to consider it. The meeting is on the 20th. Myself and Deirdre will attend that. It's during question time, so there might be a wee bit of jiggery-pokery, but we hope to be in the presence of the Minister on that date. So if any members want to raise anything now, or even keep their powder dry and get it through to the clerk. Okay.
Can I maybe just
go ahead.
And it's for ease, because we've left this a little bit longer. I'd be interested to see what the amendments to Annex L of Code C is compared to what the chiefs, police chiefs' advice is in regards to interim measures for that particular issue on the back of the Supreme Court ruling.
Okay.
So I really want to see what we're proposing compared to what the police chiefs are proposing and are actually enacting, I believe, in the rest of the United Kingdom.
Okay. Do you need that repeated again with regards to the code? Or are you okay?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I don't think it's finalised yet, but I think that's what they're still working on. But we'll see what they say compared to
the recommendation from the police chiefs is well known and established, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, agenda item number 15. Any other business? Does any member want to bring up any other items of business? No. Okay, then the agenda item number 16 is date and time and place of next meeting. Before you all run away, we're going to get a picture taken, if everybody's okay. Can I advise members that the next meeting will take place on Thursday, 16th of October 2025 at 2 p.m. in room 30 Parliament Buildings. Can I adjourn the meeting? Meeting adjourned.